Hello everyone, myself is Krishna. In this video, I'm going to explain about database activities like run command activity, insert activity, and start transaction activities in UiPath Studio. So let's get started. Run command activity is used to do the database operations like insert, update, and delete operations. So for this activity, first we need to give the connection details. So here we can provide the existing connection, or you can provide the connection string plus provider name. So here I am going to mention the existing connection as DB connection. The output of the run command activity will give us the affected rows count. It is in the integer format. So let me create a variable here. So here I am going to take one log message to display the affected rows count. Right. Now let's see how we can insert the details in the database by using the run command activity. So in the SQL Server, in the employee details table, we have three columns are available: employee ID, employee name, and salary. So while inserting, we need to mention these details. So here in the SQL command, I'm going to write a query: insert into employee details values, and here I'm going to pass the parameter ID, name, salary. Click on save and open the parameter. So here we need to mention the parameters value. So ID is in the integer format. So here I am going to mention the value as 10, and then name, it is in the string format. I'm going to mention the value as Harini, and salary. So the salary is in the decimal format. So here I am going to mention the value as 50,000. Right? Click on OK. So now let's save and run the process and verify the output. Now the process execution has been completed. So in the output panel we can see affected rows count is 1. Now let's get the all the employee details. Employee details has been added, right? Let's take in a scenario we have employee details in the data table, and let's see how we can add those details in the database by using the run command activity. So for that, first I am going to take one build data table activity. So here I am going to mention three columns: ID, name, salary, and I am going to mention the details: 21, John, 23,000, 22, Lalita, 65,000. Right? Click on OK. Let's create a variable. Now we need to iterate the data table. For that I am going to take an activity for each row in data table activity. So here we need to mention the input data table. In the body section I am going to move this run command activity and log message. So here in the parameter section, I'm going to pass the values as a dynamic. So current row ID is available at 0 index, and this should be in the integer format. So I'm going to convert, and name is available at first index, and salary is available at second index, and it should be in the decimal format. So I'm going to convert into decimal. Right. So here I'm going to take name. In the log message, I'm going to mention this name. So the format is name affected rows, and then it will give the count. Right. Let's click on save, and let's run the process and verify the output. Now the process execution has been completed. So in the output panel, we can see John affected rows count is 1 and Lalita affected rows count is 1. And let's go back to the SQL server and execute the query. So employee details has been added, right? Now let's see how we can update the details using the run command activity. So I'm using the same approach. So here I'm going to change the values John 1 and Lalita 1. So I'm going to update the details by using the employee ID. So here I'm going to change the query, update employee details, set emp name equal to name. Name is parameter, and where employee ID equal to ID. Right. So now we need to mention name and ID in the parameter. Click on save. Open the parameters. So the salary is not required. Remove and click on OK. So let's save and run the process and verify the output. So in the output we can see John 1 effective rows count is 1 and Lalita 1 effective rows count is 1. And let's go back to the SQL server. So let's execute the select query. So employee ID 21 John 1 and employee ID 22 Lalita 1, the names has been updated, right? Now let's see how we can delete the record by using the run command. So here in the SQL command we need to change the query as per delete operation. So here I wanted to delete the employee details on the basis of employee ID. So here I am going to write an SQL query delete employee details where employee ID equal to @ID, right? So here in the parameters name is not required. I am removing and click on OK, and let's save and run the process and verify the output. So in the output we can see John 1 affected rows count is 1 and Lalita 1 affected rows count 1. And let's go back to the SQL server. So let's execute the select query. So the employee details has been deleted, right? Insert activity is used to insert all the data table data at a time in the database tables For the insert activity, first we need to mention the connection details. So in the existing connection, I am going to mention the DB connection variable. The output of the insert activity will give us the affected rows count. So here I am going to mention the variable int affected rows count. Here I am going to take a one log message, and I am going to mention the log message as affected rows count. Right. So for the insert activity, we need to pass two inputs, target table name and input data table. So in the target table name, I'm going to mention employee details, and input data table, I'm going to mention dt underscore input. So while we are working with the insert activity, we should take care few things in the data table. So the first thing, the column names. The data table column names should exactly match with the database table column names. So here I am going to change the column names as per the database table column name and salary. So EMP ID, EMP name and salary. And the second thing, the data type. So in the data table, we can mention string as a data type for all the columns, but the data should be in the expected format. Basically, in the database employee details table, we have mentioned integer as a data type for employee ID. So in the data table, we need to mention integer type details under employee ID. For the same thing for salary, so in the database, we have mentioned money as a data type for salary. So we need to mention decimal type values under salary, right? So here I am going to change the values for employee ID 31, Anil 65,000, 32, Banu 70,000, right? Now let's save and run the process and verify the output. Now the process execution has been completed. In the output we can see affected rows count is 2, and let's go back to the SQL server and verify the details. So let's execute the select query. So here two employee details has been added, right? Start transaction is used to perform multiple DB operations, and at the end of the start transaction, the DB connection closed automatically. So for this activity, we need to mention the connection string. So here we can mention the connection string plus provider name, or we can mention the existing connection. So here I'm going to pass the existing connection variable DB connection, right? Here we have one option, use transaction. Means whatever the DB operation that we are performing inside the start transaction will be executed as a single transaction. If any of the DB operation failed, all the DB operation that we mentioned in the start transaction will fail. If you uncheck this option, so all the DB operations perform individually. I will show you these two scenarios. So here I am going to use this insert operation inside the start transaction. So before that, let me change the values here. I'm going to mention 41 and 42. So let me take another activity, run command. So here I'm going to pass the existing connection as a DB connection. So in the SQL command, so I'm going to mention the wrong query to get the exception. right? Now let's put a breakpoint here and let's run the process and verify the output. So here the insert query has been executed. So let's go to the SQL server. So here we can see the status executing query because we have enabled the use transaction, right? So whatever the DB operation that we mentioned inside the start transaction, it is waiting to complete all the DB operations, and based on the DB operation status, then it will going to commit all the DB operations at a time. Here I am going to click on step into. So we are getting the exception for run command, right? So as we are getting the exception for run command, the insert operation also will not going to commit, right? So let's continue. Now let's go back to the SQL server and execute the query. 41 and 42 employee details are not inserted, right? Now let's disable this option and let's save and run the process and verify the output. Now the insert operation has been completed and let's go back to the SQL server. Let's execute the select query. So here you can see 41 and 42 the employee details has been added. Click on continue. So we are getting the exception for run command activity, right? So as we disable the use transaction option for the start transaction, each DB operation committed individually, right? So the insert operation success, so it will going to commit individually and only the run command activity operation will be failed, right?